Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to bring you a video all about 10 romance books that I think you should read before the end of the year. So this is an idea that I got from a few creators. Basically, some of my bookish friends all did a collab. I want to say this was a couple weeks ago where they all put out a video about the 10 books that they think you should read before the end of the year. So I will be sure to link all of those creators down in the description below, because if I try to say them now, I know I'm gonna forget someone. So definitely check out my description for sure. But I decided to make this video myself because I thought this was just such a fun idea. And I will say, coming up with just 10 books was a little bit more difficult than I thought. I also wanted to come up with kind of a variety of different kinds of romances, different tropes, things like that. But this is basically 10 books that at this point, if you haven't read them, like, what are you doing? Like, do I need to bully you into reading them? Because I don't mind doing that if I have to. But yes, obviously these are all books that I absolutely adore and I would highly recommend. So let's go ahead and get into it. I do have a stack of books next to me, but some of them I don't own in physical format. So first book I was going to recommend The Bride Goes Rogue by Joanna Shupe because I did read that book this year. But if you haven't read The Lady Gets Lucky, first, don't even bother with The Bride Goes Rogue yet. You have to read The Lady Gets Lucky first. This is literally one of my top favorite historical romances of all time. If you have not checked out Joanna Shupe in general, if you haven't checked out this book, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't call yourself a historical romance reader if you haven't checked out this author. But this is my favorite book by her and also my favorite cover. I'm obsessed. But this is one of my favorite tropes because we have lessons in seduction going on. I did recently make a video all about books with that trope, so I will link that up in the cards above if you are interested. It is literally one of my favorite tropes of all time. But we have Alice and Kit, our hero and heroine. They are at this house party, I believe in Newport. This takes place during the Gilded Age. And so Alice desperately just wants to get married because she wants to get away from her emotionally abusive mother, basically. But she has no idea how to flirt with men, how to attract them, how to talk to them, anything like that. But there is this man, Kit, there, who is definitely a ladies' man. He definitely seems to know what he's doing when it comes to flirting with women and all of those things. And so she just goes to his room one night and asks that he give her lessons in seduction so that she can find a husband, and in exchange for that she will help him with opening his supper club. Basically, she's an amateur chef, and so she's going to help him with recipes and things like that. So things go on from there. When I tell you this is one of the most, like, stunning and beautiful, I would say this is a friends to lovers romance as well. It's just beautiful and sexy. This truly is everything you could want from the premise. This is a next level romance from Joanna Shupe, just a next level historical romance in general. Once again, if you haven't read this yet, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm gonna say that about every book. Be prepared. Next up, we have a romance that I read all the way in January, but I still just love this romance so much. It just feels very unique. I haven't read anything quite like it before, and that is Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. This is just a beautiful and sensual sapphic romance between Philippa and Tommy. And this is also just really fun because this series is called I think it's the Wild Winchester series. So it's centering around the Winchester siblings. So it's this found family element because there was this Baron Vanderveen who adopted these 6 children. He has since passed away before this book starts. And so I am obsessed with the Winchesters. They are all very distinctive and lovable characters, but Tommy is an absolute icon. She is a master of disguise. She can disguise herself to look like literally anyone, man, woman, young, old, it doesn't matter. And so she has had a crush on Philippa, our other heroine, for quite some time. She decides to dress up as the new Baron Vanderbean to court Philippa. And I will say that she reveals her true self to Philippa pretty early on in the story, and things go on from there. To this day, this is still my favorite sapphic romance that I have ever read. Like I said, it is beautiful and sensual and tender, but there are also some amazing comedic elements and action scenes, like truly everything you could want from historical romance. Next up is going to be something quite different. This is a series that had been just like sitting on my TBR for quite a few months, and when I finally read book 1, I was a little mad at myself that I had waited so long to finally start the series, but that is going to be the Necessary Evil series by Onley James. This is Unhinged, which is book 1. We have another found family here, now that I'm thinking about it, though these are contemporary romances, specifically vigilante serial killer romances. So in this story, we have the 7 Mulvaney brothers. They were all adopted at a young age by this scientist, Thomas Mulvaney. They are all either psychopaths, sociopaths, or both. So they were essentially raised to be vigilante serial killers, to kill people that have slipped through the cracks of the justice system, basically. And so this first book is about Adam Mulvaney and his romance with Noah. And the meet cutes of this series are also very iconic, because for this one, Noah is trying to kill Adam, and Adam somehow talks him down, and they immediately start having feelings for each other, and things go on from there. I also just love how in each book there is a really interesting like mystery thriller type plot going on. I think I would call this a romantic suspense romance series for that reason. Truly an addictive series. I'm about to read book 3 very soon. These romances are also somehow kind of sweet and wholesome. I don't know how Onley James does it, but there's truly just something for every kind of romance reader in this series. I'm obsessed. Next up is a romance duet that I read earlier this year, back in February, and I read this specifically for a reading vlog that I was doing, where I was reading some of Tori's favorite romances of all time. That is Tori from Novel Life. She is already linked down below because she's one of the creators that made this kind of video. But I would not have read this duet as soon as I did had I not been making that vlog. So for that alone, I am so grateful to Tori for having me read this duet. That is the Antiheroes in Love duet by Gianna Darling. To this day, this is still the only thing that I've read by this author, and I need to read more from her. So please give me your top Gianna Darling recommendations down in the comments, because clearly I need to be bullied into reading more from her, because after reading this duet, I am obsessed with her writing style. There is just something so lush and beautiful about her writing style. But this is an iconic couple, an iconic romance. This is about Dante, who is a mafia capo, and we have Elena pictured here on the cover. She is a lawyer, and so Dante is on trial for the murder of this man who's also in the mafia. This is a murder that he definitely did not commit. We find that out pretty early on in this first book. And Elena is on his defense team, and Dante just knows that he wants Elena, and he will do anything and everything to have her. And so yeah, these two books are their romance. There's a lot of different crazy mafia stuff going on, but I adore this couple with my whole heart. I love that Dante is very charming and kind of sunshiny to Elena's grumpiness. I always love a grumpy heroine, sunshiny hero. That definitely serves that. This is also my favorite mafia romance that I've ever read, so if you're looking for my top mafia romance recommendation, it's going to be this duet. I will never shut up about my love for this couple and for their story. And as much as I loved book 1, I loved book 2 even more. The audiobooks for this series are also top notch. Can't recommend these highly enough. And if this tells you anything, I love this series so much that I had to buy these hardcover editions, which are not cheap, but they are definitely worth it. So yes, Read this duet, please. So next up, I have to talk about Manacled by Senlin Yu. I have to. I can't make a video like this and not talk about this fanfiction. So this is something that I read all the way back at the beginning of January of this year. A lot of my bookish friends were reading this at the same time, and hearing them all just rant and rave about it, I knew that I had to pick it up myself, and I had never read fanfiction before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But this is Harry Potter fanfiction, specifically a Hermione fanfiction, so Draco and Hermione are the hero and heroine of our story. This is a very, 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 very dark fantasy romance. Like, I can't stress enough how dark it is. I will say the author does a fantastic job of listing all of the trigger warnings at the beginning of the fanfic. And if you are curious, I download all of my fanfictions off of Archive of Our Own, which is a fantastic fanfiction website. But this is a fanfiction that combines the Harry Potter world with the idea of The Handmaid's Tale. In this world, we know right away Harry Potter is dead. Voldemort has won the war. And this deviates from canon around the Order of the Phoenix, just to give you an idea. And so now the wizard population has been dwindling over the years. It turns out that this idea of only having purebloods marry each other and try to have kids isn't really working out for the wizarding world. And so to remedy this problem, Voldemort has implemented this Handmaid's Tale-like program where they are forcing witches to be surrogates and to birth children for these pureblood couples. So Hermione ends up becoming the surrogate for Draco and his wife. There's also a really interesting amnesia element to this because Hermione has lost all of her memories of essentially what happened during the war. The beginning of the story is just her waking up in this dungeon and kind of having fuzzy memories here and there, but she doesn't really know what exactly is going on and why she's in this dungeon. But yes, this is very dark, but also just a fantastic story. It's also very long. This is definitely over 1,000 pages, and it took me about 2 weeks to get through. Now, I wasn't only reading this, I was definitely reading other books at the same time, and that's how I personally would recommend reading this. I can tell you right now that this is my favorite thing I've read this year. Nothing has surpassed it, and I don't think anything is going to surpass it. This is truly an epic story, an epic, very dark romance. There are scenes in this that still live in my head rent-free, both traumatic scenes and beautiful scenes. And like, yeah, like if there's like one book that you take away from this video that you need to read right away, I would say it would be this one. So next up, I want to talk about Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. So this is a hockey romance that I had heard a lot of my bookish friends rave about over the years, really ever since I kind of joined the booktube community. A lot of people really love this romance. And so I just decided to randomly pick it up this year, and I'm so glad I did. This is truly a soulmate level romance. Quite a few of the books that I'm talking about in this video are that level, but this is truly the best MM romance I've ever read. I am obsessed with this couple. This is about Shane and Ilya. They are both hockey players and they play for rival teams. And so this is a rivals to lovers story because of their careers, basically. And this takes place over several years. I want to say it's like 7 years or something that this book takes place in, where we see the beginning of their relationship when they first meet. And, you know, they're definitely rivals on and off the ice, but they also can't deny this insane chemistry that they have. And so their relationship starts as them just like randomly hooking up every now and then, but we see over the years that they truly fall in love with each other. And so at the end of this book, I would say it's more of a happy for now type ending because they do get a sequel that is called The Long Game. Rachel Reed actually just published that this year, now that I'm thinking about it. And I'm so glad that I waited to read Heated Rivalry until The Long Game came out. out because I think I would have been in agony if I would have had to wait for it. But The Long Game is also a phenomenal book. You know, it just continues on their story from where Heated Rivalry ended, and it's just an incredible epic romance. Like I said, truly soulmate level, very steamy. Lots of amazing sex scenes in this book for sure. Next up, we are changing it up a bit. I am going to talk about Wolfgang Wild by Juliet Cross. This is book 1 in her Stay a Spell series. Truly my favorite paranormal romance series of all time. I can definitely say that with confidence. I'm currently reading Always Practice Safe Hex, which is book 4 of the series, but you definitely need to start with book 1, which is why I'm featuring it in this video. These books are just so fun and sexy, and they all have this really great suspenseful element to them. The plot of this one specifically, though, is about Mateo, who is a werewolf. He's having an issue where he's not able to shift into his werewolf form, and in this world, that's something that werewolves need to be able to do like once a month in order to basically stay sane, but he can't shift. And so he figures out through meeting this witch, Evie, who is our heroine, that he has had a hex put on him, and so they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on with Mateo, and along the way they fall in love. This is a series that centers around the Savoy sisters, who are all witches, and it's just incredible. There's also a really great found family aspect to this as well. Clearly that is one of my favorite things in literature. I love a good found family. Next up is one of the most beautiful romances that I think I've ever read, and this book truly gutted me yet put me back together again, and that is Behind the Bars by Brittany Cherry. I think this is one of Brittany Cherry's most underrated books, and that makes me so sad because this is truly a stunning story, romance book, everything. This takes place in New Orleans as well. That was one of the many things that I loved about this, and this centers a lot around music. This is a part of her Music Street series, though I don't think she's written anything else as a part of this series, at least as far as I know. But this is a childhood friends to lovers story about Eli and Jasmine. They meet when they're in high school, and these characters truly go through it. My God. But basically they start falling for each other, but because of reasons, Jasmine moves away for quite a few years, but when she moves back, she goes to find Eli, and she realizes that he is literally a completely different person. He is now very cold, very guarded, and she has no idea why. And so things go on from there. I do want to say content warning for loss of a loved one, as well as a pretty violent death on page, so be aware of that. With Brittany Cherry, you have to be in the mood for her books. They're very emotional. Like I said, they will gut you. This book made me cry several times, but by the end, it's so worth it. This is just a stunning romance. I can't emphasize that enough. If you have never read anything by this author before, I do think this would be a good book to start with. It's just incredible. I feel like nobody writes romance like Brittany Cherry, and I need to read more from her. Next up, to change things up a bit, I have a manga series that is truly my favorite manga series I have ever read. That is Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. This is incredible. This is literally one of my favorite couples ever. This is about Notori and Asako. They both work for the soap company, so this is an office romance. This does have kind of a weird premise. You can kind of tell by the title that the premise is going to be a little bit different maybe. But basically Asako has a problem where she sweats a lot, and so because of that she's very worried about how she smells, and so she's like constantly putting on deodorant. Meanwhile, Notori, upon meeting her, he realizes that he is obsessed with her scent, and he actually works in the more like creative side of things in their company. He comes up with different scents of soap and things like that, whereas Asako works in the financial department. And so through meeting her and they start dating, he realizes that she gets his creative juices flowing, and so he's coming up with all these different soap ideas because of her. And so yes, at first he is definitely attracted to her because of her scent, but this is also one of the like just sweetest and healthy relationships I've ever read about in any kind of fictional story, whether that be manga or just romance novels in general. I love how these two openly communicate with each other. They're always honest with each other. They're just incredibly sweet. Like, I remember tearing up quite a bit reading the first 3 volumes of this series. I'm planning on reading volume 4 very soon. And yeah, like this truly is a series that just makes me so giddy and so happy. You can tell I can't help but smile when talking about this manga series. So even if you're someone that doesn't read manga for whatever reason, I still would highly recommend that you check out this series because, like I said, Notori and Asako are truly everything to me. We have one last book to recommend. That is going to be Haven by Claire Kent. This is a book that I read pretty recently, just about a week or so ago, and this book blew me away. I did not expect to love this novella as much as I did. This is about 170 pages, so I think that it's a pretty short read. You'll fly right through it. So this is book 1 in Claire Kent's Kindled series. This is a post-apocalyptic romance series. We are in a world where this very awful event happened. I'm not going to spoil what it is, even though that's revealed pretty early on in the book. But the entire ecosystem of Earth has just been completely fucked up. And so society has fallen. Basically, people are just dying, and any cities that are left are now being ruled under martial law. And so this is just a very dire and hopeless situation. Yet something that I loved about this book so much is that there absolutely is hope and there is light to this world at the same time. But this is about Faith and Jackson. They run this little farm community. Basically, when this apocalyptic event happened, they built a wall around their farm and they're completely self-sufficient. Obviously, there's no electricity anymore, but you know, they grow their own food, they take care of themselves, and so Faith and Jackson run this little community. This is one of those romances where the hero falls first. You know, Jackson and Faith have known each other for quite a few years because they lived on this farm for a while. And he has just been head over heels in love with her, and she had no idea because he is very gruff and grumpy, and that trope is just everything to me. I eat that shit up. Yeah, the relationship between these two people is everything. The world, like I said, even though it's a very dire situation, there's just something so addictive about this world and about these characters. Like, I could not put this novella down. I was absolutely addicted the entire time. I cannot wait to continue on with the series. There are 2 more books out, and then there's also another book called Last Light, which is technically a prequel, but it does take place in the same world, so I'm very much looking forward to reading that as well. Like, just trust me and give this series a chance because it's incredible. I feel like I've never read anything quite like this before. So that is going to be it for 10 romances that I think you should read before the end of 2022. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of the books that I brought up in this video, or if you want to give me recommendations. I always love getting recommendations from you guys. And with all that being said, I would love it if you would leave a like and subscribe. And I thank you so much in advance if you do. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!